Whoa. So Rabbi Mordecai here. We're still in this process of discovering this new economy, building this new spiritual society. And, it's important to stay important to the basic, the premise, right, of what we're building off of. If someone's going to build a house, they normally have plans, right? They have architecture plans, and from those plans, they go out and they start building, right? And so the architecture, the plans that we're working off of, we're working on a few premises or few ideas that make up the foundation. One idea is Rabbi Nachman's outlook on the future of the world economy. He says during the times of Mashiach, there won't be any business. All business will be gone. Everything will go on the wayside. There'll be no more corporations. Fortune 500 companies will be gone. Currency would be meaningless. Everything's gone. Stock market won't exist. The whole thing, right? Why? He said because business as a functionality is expressing this idea of different desires, right? Or the perception of different desires. You have buyers, you have sellers, you have people who are negotiating two different perspectives, trying to find a middle ground. The whole expression of business is an expression of a level of consciousness that is of our generation that seemingly sees opposites, right? Like we see sporting games, we see sports, we see two different teams and whatnot. And that dynamic of left and right, that idea of Hesed and Gevurah, right? I watch a football game, I watch the Super Bowl, right? I mean, I didn't see the Super Bowl, but I'm saying if a person watching the Super Bowl, I know the Super Bowl happened. I didn't Baruch Hashem, I didn't see one Super Bowl commercial. I have no idea what Super Bowl commercials happen. But the point is saying you have two teams going against each other, right? There's a team you're rooting for, and then there's a team that is the opposition. So the team you're rooting for could be in the frame of Hesed, and the team you are not, who's against your team, is Gevurah, right? And that's it. There's never a conclusion of unity between those two entities, right? There's no conclusion. One team wins, Hesed wins, or Gevurah wins, but that's it. It never evolves to Tiferet. It never creates this central column expression, right? And so this is the understanding that the level of connection to the original light that existed during the times of Adam Rishon, during the times of the first day of creation, that original light is no longer here. So every generation after that, there's been a lower dissemination of that light, right? There's been a lower dissemination of that light. And so in every generation of that lower dissemination, there's different experiences and things that happen, right? So the sins that were committed in the Garden of Eden were at a different level than the sins that were created during the times of the Beis Hamikdash, right? And so being clear on that point, being clear on the idea that saying that, hey, you know what? This is the reality. We, in our generation, the level of light, Hashem's revealment to us, we see a world of duality. We see a world of good and bad. We see a world of black and white. We see a world of Democrat, Republican, this, socialist, liberal, conservative, this, black keeper, Sioni keeper, no keeper, all types of things, right? But we see different races. So everything that we express, everything that we see is a reflective of a state of consciousness. So Rabbi Nachman of Breslov says that in the end of days, or the end of the system of days, we're going to get to a point where everyone has one desire, right? Everybody has one desire, right? And so that's one idea. And so there'll be no more business. How can you do exchange if both people want the same thing? What is the one thing? Light force of the creator. We all want the light force of the creator. That's it. That's all we want. Every thought you want. At yeshiva, and when I was in yeshiva at Or Sameach, we had one of our Magid Shir is Rabbi Breitowitz. You know, Rosh Hashiva is Rabbi Schiller, but Rabbi Breitowitz, he said one time on Shabbos, you know, because we would have these like really intense, you know, Shabbat, you know, services. I don't think of the English word. There's a Shabbat services, and we would have like really intense davening and singing, and our Rav would give a really extensive shir, right? And one of the things he said, Rabbi Bridles, he said that everything that you desire, your greatest dream, your greatest fantasy, the thing you want the most, everything that you want only provides you an opportunity to do more mitzvot. Everything. There's not one thing you can desire. The way Hashem created the world, there's not one thing that you can desire that your human mind can comprehend and express. Your greatest form of imagination is there to do more mitzvot. A person wants tons of money. I don't want to worry about money anymore ever again for the rest of my life. Okay, so now you don't have to worry about money. Now you have more time to do more mitzvot. Or different types of a set of mitzvot. Oh, I want to be with my soulmate. I want to be with my soulmate. Okay, so you want to be with your soulmate. You want to do you want to do kedushin and surin. And you want to move into a house, and you want to have children and all these other mitzvahs. The mitzvah of marriage just opens up because the rabbis designed that system of marriage, right? In kedushin, right? In Masechta Kedushin, we learned it. I learned it extensively, almost like a year. We learned this Masechta in yeshiva. And in that mechanism of us expressing the relationship between a man having a wife and bringing a wife into his home, Kenyan, whatever, that point, that idea that you see the whole world, all the non-Jews, all the non-Jewish people who have weddings, they're copying a system created by our Tanaim, right? Meaning, there was always a tradition how a woman should come to a house. I'm saying it was written down, obviously, in our Mishnah, right? But that tradition obviously existed for a millennium before, right? And it was just passed down. But the point is just saying, as it's codified as a system, that came from our rabbis, right? So for me to be married, I had to, do a bunch of things, right? And that created a legal marriage under the halakhic Jewish understanding as we have today in diaspora, right? This is inside of our Gemara, right? And this goes back. But that particular mitzvah of that ceremony only creates a mechanism for us to have kavana for the mitzvah deraisa of puravu. The real mitzvah is puravu. It's not the marriage. The marriage is a context to make sure that the mechanism to actually be fruitful, right? Because it's not just to multiply. Hashem doesn't say just multiply. Hashem says be fruitful, right? And multiply, meaning the Ari says that the fruitful has to do with the state of consciousness, the souls of Ruach, because the whole Torah, people think the Torah is just, all of a sudden became something, Israel, right? No, Hashem created a specific line of human beings of a higher soul since the beginning of time. And it went all the way throughout the ages. In 26 generations after Adam Rishon, you have Bnei Israel, right? You have Moshe Rabbeinu, you have the whole process, right? So this whole concept of us fulfilling, this mitzvah of marriage is connected to this idea of us functioning in the frame of Hashem's desire with the right technology and the right guidance system created by our sages, right? And that's the difference between us and the other nations. But the point is saying that the whole concept of marriage is there for us to connect to the mitzvah of Puravu, and the mitzvah of Puravu is there for us to have more mitzvahs, which is raising the children, chinuk, all these different types of dynamics that have to do with children and building and raising a family and having a wife and having shalom bayis, all these mitzvahs that open up through the ketubah right? All those mitzvahs that open up through the ketubah, those mitzvahs are all there because this is our communication and relationship with God. When we do a mitzvah, we are literally express like it's like if God was had a bakery in heaven, and that bakery produced so many like donuts, so many bread pieces, everything. Those donuts and all those different things that come out of that bakery, when they express themselves in our physical world, those are the people who do mitzvah. Those people who do the mitzvahs are literally expressing, they are the expression of God's bakery. They are the reason why God created the world. They are expressing God's will. They are as if we can see God in the physical sense. It would be when you see someone say Shachol Ni'evi Pro, or you see a place of Shalom Bayis, or you see a person rapping tefillin, or you see these things. This is expressing God's will. So the whole connection to mitzvah is to connect to God. So Rabbi Nachman is taking us into a place where he's like, hey, you know what? At the end of the days, all you're going to want to do is mitzvahs. All you're going to see is the clarity of the light force of Hashem and this mirage that we're temporarily experiencing called life and reality. And you're going to be able to see through that mirage, and you're going to say, wait, this isn't where the sustenance is at. It's in this world beyond this. And this is the intelligence of Adam Rishon. This is the reality beyond that, right? We're operating in the frame of Adam after the Chet. But Adam before the Chet, which is also our DNA, was able to see past all that. So we're going to return to that original DNA where that dynamic is there. So we're only going to have one desire at the end of days. All of humanity is going to have one desire where we're all focused on receiving the light force of God, and everything else will be material. So that's one basic premise, right? Introduction. Second basic premise is that this expression of reality that we're experiencing never addresses the needs of the soul, right? It never addresses the needs of the soul. The needs of the soul, what the soul needs, forget about it. It's not, you're not going to take a class on it in Harvard. You're not going to find a cable TV station that's going to give you broadcast on what the soul needs and how to fulfill the soul and the dynamics of the soul. It just does not exist. So what I'm saying is irrelevant if you believe that we don't have a soul. If we have a soul, there's a big problem. There's a huge problem. Because we're saying that the most essential part of who I am is never addressed in any form of society around me. But I'm trusting my life in direction with that same society. Hey, that's dark. That is dark. That's how you're living? You're living in that reality? That you're going to trust your whole 120 years on this planet Earth, and you're going to trust that with a system that's never even recognized the most essential and the holiest part of your existence, which is your soul. You're going to follow their ways. You're going to follow the way they tell you to eat, the way they tell you to have intimacy, the things they tell you to think about. They're not even in the game. They're not even in the game. It's like someone getting a bunch of people, putting you on the basketball court and forcing them to play basketball, but they never give them the ball. There's no ball. People are running around, they're running plays. There's no ball. Imagine watching a basketball game with no sound of the ball hitting the ground. People just running around. They can never score. They can make moves. You can move around. You can show effort, but you're not scoring baskets. You're not correcting the soul. You're not doing it. You're not doing it. So, that being said, that's the issue. That's the second point. That's the issue. That we live in a society that never even addresses what makes us unique or special, even why God brought us in this world. We're in the world to complete our tikkun. We have a soul, it needs to be corrected. We're in this world to correct it. That's simple. God creates experiences for us as a gift to correct our soul. So the parents that we were given, the neighborhood we were born in, the amount of resources we were allotted, everything is to the most essence of perfection for our soul to have the opportunity to achieve its potential and correction in its lifetime. But if we don't see it that way, then we just live in a world of randomness. You know, we think, oh, my parents were this way. I didn't know my mom. I didn't know my dad. I didn't know my uncle. I grew up in an orphanage or this, these different things. And I'm not making light of it. But if that person who grew up in an orphanage and no one ever tucked them in at night when they were sick or they felt alone, and no one treated them fair, no one treated them kind, and they watched television and all these other people having much better lives than them, all that, right? If that person could see the perfection of that environment that God put them in as it relates to their return to the heavens, and the perfect placement and kalim they will have to actually experience God, they would be dancing every day. They would feel guilty how much they're winning sleeping in an orphanage. They would never want to sleep in a palace. They would never want to sleep in a functional, happy, excited home. They would never even want anything to do with that. No, put me in an orphanage where I have to sit there and be lonely, Baruch Hashem. They would never question it. It's only in the illusionary reality that we see the world that we have is not perfect. Oh my God, look at the weather. God, the weather, wow, it's so bad. I want the weather to be different. No, if you understand how the weather and your response to the weather was connected to the correction of your soul, you're like, wow, what can I learn from it being 56 degrees and 36 wind chill and this and all these different components that make up the weather? What does that tell me about myself today in the correction of my soul? That's how Abraham learned about himself, from watching nature, the world around him, observing it, traveling, seeing different places. So that's a very important point, right? And so the third point, which is going to allow us to dive into this conversation about economics, is even more expansive. Because the Midrashim tell us that when we are in our mother's womb, there's an angel that comes and teaches us the entire Torah. I hold that Torah that we taught inside of our mother's womb is the Torah, is the world that we see around us. The sun, the moon, the stars, everything we see around us, and we have recognition towards it, is because of the 7 days of creation. That's why there's no real religion that's ever existed in the world that didn't mimic the foundation of the Torah. They had to take 7 days of foundation, 7 days of creation. They had to take the stories of Abraham, of Noah, of Abraham, Isaac, Jacob. All these things had to be taken into account in order for them to even bring their understanding of spirituality. All these things had to exist. All these things had to exist in order for them to bring their thing to it. They took the premise, they took the structure, they took the organization, and they said, hey, the icing on top is us. And so that icing on top, we're going to tell you that the whole structure is connected to that icing on the top. This is the power of the Torah. So that structure, without that structure, human beings aren't even able to have the same cognitive reality. Because the fact that we both agree that there's sun, moon, and stars is because that's information that's being fed to us. By who? The angels. And that's why when you learn the Torah, it feels like you're learning more about yourself. If you're learning it properly, that you're learning about yourself, you're learning about who you are, you're learning about your essence. But it's more than that. Everything that you see around you is the Torah. It's not in a book. It's not in the book. The Torah, as a physical book, is there to allow us to see the real Torah, or the ultimate Torah, which is the reality around us. Everything we see is the Torah. The tree is a tree because the Torah says it's a tree. Right? A fish exists because the Torah says it's a fish exists. It's not a fish on its own that this book is describing. It exists itself because the Torah expressed it. If it wasn't for the Torah expression in the Malach teaching us that, we would never have any recognition of fish. Do you know how much is around us that we can't even see with our five senses? Almost everything that is expressly expressed in the 7 days of creation, we see around us all the time. It's not by accident. And there's a whole bunch of other things we can't see around us, but we also have teachings that can allow us to understand, because we know all of the Torah inside of us. We know all the Kabbalah, we know the Midrashim, we know all the Gemara, the Mishnahs, everything's inside of us, right? Everything's inside of us. So we're reading and we're learning and we're yeshiva, we're just learning about ourselves. I'm learning about who I am. When I'm hearing about the laws of the Torah, I'm just learning about myself. Because that's who I am. That's my whole intellect, my whole design. The ego, arrogance, tells us, no, that's not the case. I thought of this. This is my desire. This is what I should do. This is the ego. But our true self is just submitting ourselves to Hashem, following his ratzon, following his Torah, being an example. Everything that the sages tell us we should do, everything the Torah describes, it's natural. It's ego that makes a difference. It's klipa, it's negativity, it's impurity. That's what makes us do it. Our natural self wants to be pure. You've never met a child that wants to commit a sin. Never. Because our natural nature is to keep the Torah. Everything else is impurity. So the world that we see around us, it's all God. It's all Torah. The Torah is expressing God's instructions on how to deal with the reality around us. How do I deal with the trees? How do I deal with my neighbor? How do I do business? How do I tie my shoes? Everything that we experience in the physical world, God gives us instructions for it. So these are three basic premises. That at the end of days, all of reality's consciousness will be one. The second point is the fact that we live in a society that doesn't even address the most essential part of who we are. It never talks about it. It never talks about our soul. When people talk about being shomer mitzvahs, keeping Shabbos and these other things, it's not about religion. It's what your soul needs, brother. Without Shabbat, the soul's not getting anything. You could go to the most fancy restaurant and eat treif lobsters and treif champagne and everything that you see on the television. And you're gonna be suffering. And you may not even, you have become so accustomed to suffering, you don't even know you're suffering. And then we learn that all of reality is an expression of Torah. So now that we create that basis, let's talk about something even more specific. Why do we live in a world? I already answered the question, but I'm just going to ask you anyways. Why do we live in a world that teaches us to hate ourselves? Why do we have that? Why does everything in our society is built on the fact of us lacking something? Why is every aspiration based off of something we lack? If we want to, like you as a kid, what do you want to be when you grow up? Oh, I want to be a fireman. Okay, so you obviously can't be a fireman now. because you didn't go to school, you didn't do these things, right? You didn't do these things. So you can't be a fireman now. Maybe later, after you go to school, after you prove you're this and that. But everything that we aspire for is based off of something we're not. And then I want to ask you another question. What does it mean? What does self-love mean? Self-care. What does it mean? Self-care, self-love. Does that mean I should go and get a massage? Get a pedicure? Go and spend a little extra on a nice suit? Maybe buy an expensive purse? I mean, I wouldn't, but females do. Self-love. Who created that idea of self-love? How did self-love and us spending more money and connecting to industry, how did those things become connected? How? How does the term self-love have to do with me going out purchasing something? Self-care. Okay, I'm gonna make it easy. We live in a reality that's based around lack, right? We talked about the different worlds, all these things. You gotta listen to other stuff. I did a lot of rehashing today. It's important because we're about to go to a new Madriga. But the point is saying we live in a reality that has to be empty, that has to have a physical component, but not an internal component. That's why we can't have institutions that teach us about the soul, because that goes against the physical reality. That's a whole nother dynamic. But through Bechira, through free will, we can explore that world. Only through that. And the people who have the free will, the people who have a ruach, neshama, chayim yechida. We may be at the level of ruach, but those are the only people who have that ability to do that and express the concept of das. That's it. The physical world is designed to be empty, designed to have a lack, that designed to have something missing. This is how it's designed. This is the computer program. The design of God, of this whole reality that we're in, is a design of lack. It has to be built this way. This is how our sages describe the physical world of Malchut. Okay? This is what we're dealing with here. So the world has to have lack. You have to be insecure. You have to not be good enough. You have to have a dynamic where someone's better than you. You have to have some type of mountain you have to climb. You have to go up some type of ladder. You are not smart enough. You're not this. You're not that. That's how the physical world is designed. That's the way it's designed. Blueprint, reality. There's day and there's night. There's certain things you can do during the day you can't do at night. There's certain feelings at night. It's not a continuous, it's a constant experience of different forms of lack. When it's really cold during the winter, all you can think about when it was warm during the summer. When it's warm during the summer, you wish you had some cold during the winter. Everything is lack. You meet someone, they have a great body, but they don't have this. This person has a lot of money, but they don't have that. This person is this, they have that. Everything is lack. This is how the world is designed. That's it. That clear. So because of that, our challenge is to understand that reality and to gravitate towards Rabbi Nachman's reality, which is humanity having one desire. So we're not against each other. We're not even just against our Yetzer Hara, our evil inclination. We have a physical design that is only being truthful, but we don't want to believe it. It's like someone is constantly telling you the truth, and because it's not the truth you want to hear, you don't want to believe it. The physical reality is saying, hey, I have limited fulfillment, but I can give you immediate pleasure. And we're like, no, It's not just immediate pleasure. You're going to fulfill me forever. You're going to fulfill me forever. That's what you're going to do. You're going to bring fulfillment to me forever. I'm going to sin in this way, but you promise me that it's going to bring me pleasure forever, because that's the way I decided to interpret your commercial and your TV show and your movie and your screenplay and all these things. I decided to interpret it that way. And so from that place, I decided that what this world has shown me is going to bring me fulfillment forever. You think when a person goes out and just randomly has sex, you don't think that they want to feel love forever? When a person is not truthful, you don't think that they want to just feel safe forever? You think they enjoy these things? They just want to be safe. They just want to feel pleasure. The world is empty, it's full of lack, and they have no way of fulfilling themselves. They have no knowledge on how to do it. So what happens? If I don't have any knowledge, then there's a thing called television and music videos and TV shows. I know, I worked in it. The job was to create fantasies for escapism for the people who watched our stuff. They could forget about life. That was our job. Our job was to find mechanisms to help people forget about the severity and the seriousness of life, putting them in a state of utopia where consumption was the ultimate goal, that they would consume something that was connected to the message that allowed them to escape. Pizza, cars, whatever. Hamburgers. It's interesting to call it hamburgers. But anyways, but the point is just saying that, like, this is what we're dealing with. This is what we're dealing with. So once you accept that this is how Malchut was built and created and designed, that is built with a lack, something's missing. It has to be missing. This whole concept of time. Time represents lack of fulfillment, right? If you're totally fulfilled, there's no time. Time is connected to a system of destinations. Destinations require you to be from one place and then go to another. But if you're fulfilled, you don't move. Where are you going? You're fulfilled. Why do you need to walk over there? Why do you need to think about these other things? You're fulfilled. You're good. What matter what time it is, what day it is? You are fulfilled. We're waiting for Shabbat. We're waiting for Purim. We're waiting for Rosh Chodesh. We're in Rosh Chodesh right now. Wow. Okay, so we're in Rosh Chodesh now. But the point is the same. We are building to different forms of lacks. We're building for different forms of connections. And so the world that we express is all around us. Now, here's another point. And I didn't make this one of the foundational points because it's not such a part of this discussion, but it's the second chapter of my book, Mind of the Black Jew. And it's all about the 1% reality and the 99% reality. And the 1% reality and the 99% reality is about humility. I can't see, I don't know, I have a limited perception of reality. There's a whole world of a 99% of things happening around me that I can't connect to. So Hashem gave me an instruction manual called the Torah, which I derive by halacha, that allows me to function in the reality that was given to me in my mother's womb, that allows me to experience reality. This was what's going on around us. This is what's going on around us. So from that place, now I'm rolling. I get it. I'm just in an illusionary experience called life. I'm trying to make this a finite existence, but it's not. That's the whole concept of Nissim, is that it reminds us that there is no real structure. We think our ego wants to create a consistent structure. There isn't. We want to inject that. And so when we get so deep in that reality, Hashem has to break it, and that's where the miracles come in. That's when the miracles come in. Is when you're so confident that this is reality. This is what's going on around me. This is where despair and hopelessness come from, because I'm looking around me and everything is dismal. Everything is tragic. It's not getting better. We're just suffering every day. Plague number one. Plague number two. Plague number three. And now I'm sitting here looking at reality, saying like, wait, why am I able to drink from this water, but when this person drinks, it's blood? But if the Zohar says that when the Jews were literally selling water to the Egyptians, because the water that they had it stayed water. When the Egyptians came, everything was just blood. Connected the blood that they spilled of the Jew in Mitzrayim. Now, the very thing that they murdered or allowed to be murdered or watched to be murdered is the very thing that's bringing them Yeshua. This is the non-Jew. The very thing that gives them sustenance is the Jew keeping mitzvot, not Jewish last name. A Jew keeping the Torah, being an expression of God from Hashem's bakery. This is what gives sustenance to the non-Jew. It's not a superiority thing. It's about connectivity. It's about a system. There's a point guard. There's a shooting guard. There's a small forward. There's a power forward. There's a center, and everyone plays a position. The point guard is the Jew. Okay, we're old. We've been along for a long time, and we're passing the ball. Shoot your three-pointer. Okay, we know all the plays. But why do we love ourselves? Because we live in this world where we're supposed to have lack. But guess what? Now we got a problem. Because now the very basis of our sustenance, our pranasa, comes from our ability to express ourselves. To see that everything that we have is Hashem. Every gift, every talent that we have is Hashem. Hashem gave it to us. This is all Hashem. The body that we have is Hashem. That's why we don't abuse our bodies. The mind that we have is Hashem. We don't want to abuse this mind. Everything to us is a loan. It's a loan to help correct our soul. But this conversation is not said because we live in a society that's devoid of completion. And the way that completion is not expressed is through a lack of understanding and connection to the soul. This is reality. This is not my thoughts. This is going back since the beginning of time, said over and over and over and over and over again. So that being said, this is a challenge. The challenge is, how do we get to a place of self-love through the understanding of Hashem's creation? Hashem created our organs, He created our bloodstream, our hearts, our veins, our bones, our limbs, the cells, the molecules. He gave us seichel, He gave us dot, He gave us a brain, He gave us all the 10 spheros. The only thing we have is the free will to remove the ego. And the ego wants us to believe that we are separate from God, and we should fall under the illusion of the 70 nations of the physical reality and not see ourselves as divine, as being connected in expression of God. We're trying to connect to God. That's the illusionary world. We are an expression of God, and the realization is the connection, right? It's like holding someone's hand, but you are obsessed with thinking about the football game, and then you realize you've been holding this person's hand the whole time. But your mind's over there. Your mind's thinking about something else. You forgot you're holding hands. So this is us being born. We forgot we're one with Hashem, and so we start thinking about other things. And so we feel separate, and that's when the ego kicks in. We're just free will. And that's the expression of the highest part of our soul. That's all we are. What do you do with that free will? So we have to continue to chip away at this idea of what we are, because that was designed by a system of Malchut, a system that has no connection to the soul, has no connection to the purpose of reality, because there's no understanding of the soul. And so therefore, every form of information they're going to give me is going to be connected to body consciousness. Everything that they give me is going to be connected to body consciousness. Why? Because that's the whole thing. It's the external self. The internal self is not discussed. You don't hear Chris Brown talking, singing songs about his soul being fulfilled. You don't see Drake, who is Jewish, talk about his transformational reality of overcoming Yetzer Hara to have the ultimate connection to Hashem. He's not thinking about that. He's not thinking about his soul's correction. He's not thinking about it. He talks about his astrology. It's interesting. He talks about being Scorpio, but he doesn't connect it to Noah's flood. He doesn't connect it to a generation that had great gifts and used it the wrong way. Maybe he'll look at himself in that way. But the point is just saying that's not what we live in. We live in a world that's based off of body consciousness. Me consciousness. And not the real me. If it was a total me, that would be the most beautiful thing. The total me is my soul, my body, my mind, everything, my emotions, everything is me. And not only that, and so are you me. So is a tree me. So is the animal kingdom and the mineral kingdom and the plant kingdom. That's also me. So my space would be the world that God created for me. It wouldn't be a social platform. But we're not as a collective society. So the economy that we're building is based off of this self-recognition that allows us to only focus on expressing the unique qualities of our individual souls. That's the whole thing. This is the whole economy, and this economy is what Rabbi Nachman is talking about, and we're working from where we're at right now. And so we want to build a critical mass of people that are not focused on religion, right? That's just for Jewish people. They should be religious. But I'm saying outside of that, we want to focus on a critical mass of human beings to see that there's more beyond the 1% reality, beyond the 5 senses. And that's where my connection and my ultimate fulfillment is going to come from. In that space of that connection, it comes to a place of unity. It comes from a place of sharing and giving and getting away from selfishness. This is the difference between the animal kingdom and the Hebrew in the human kingdom. The animal kingdom doesn't have the capacity. I have an amazing cat, one of the most unique personalities, but he's never brought me anything to eat. He's never woke up and asked me how I feel about anything. He wants to be fed. But I, as a human being, have the capacity to be the bestower, where I do have the capacity to share. When he comes to me and he asks me, my cat come and ask me for breakfast, meow, meow, meow. He's in front of my door, my window. He's saying that you are at a higher understanding, you're at a higher expression of God's neshama, soul. I'm just in the animal state of the soul. You are at a human state. I don't have the capacity to receive anything, to give anything. I can only receive. It's a male cat, right? So it can't even have kids, right? But the point is just saying, or give birth, right? But the point is just saying that dynamic, that separation happens every morning. The cat says, you are at a level of ruach, and I am at a level of malchut of neshama, of nefesh, right? The animal soul that only knows how to receive. And so because I have entered the covenant of Kedusha, I was able to reveal, manifest, draw down, however way you want to say it. There's different shitot on it. But the point is just saying I was able to do that and be in a position where now not only do I have to share to my cat, I have to share it to my wife. I have to share it to my community. I have to share with all these people, my family, everybody, because I am put in a position of being a example and expression of an entity with the level of Ruach consciousness. This is the reality. And so this economy we're not talking about money. Come on, let's go higher than that. I just destroyed money. I just told you it doesn't mean anything. It's only money only has a value in a society that has different desires. I just explained that to you. I just destroyed it. You don't even know what I just did. I just destroyed it. The whole system, the whole illusion, I just destroyed it. It's only a reality in a society that people have different desires. People with one desires, currency means nothing. It's irrelevant. You see these guys, these rappers, like they don't ever show the experience, but they talk about these rappers going to these strip clubs. It's on TV, the news, and they go and put $1 million in the strip club, throw it down, $1 million, throw it all over the place, right? But that only exists because the rapper and the stripper has two different desires. One has a desire to give this money over, and another person has a desire to receive. But Rabbi Nachman saying in that situation, that won't even exist. They will all be begging Hashem and opening their souls and their hearts to receive God's light. Hashem's essence, Hashem's or, Hashem's ruknius, his kedusha, his shefa. That's what those two entities, the rapper and the stripper, that's all over every blog site, they're going to be on their knees trying to beg to Hashem to save their soul. There won't be any separate desires anymore. Raw expression of it, I know. But I had to go there because I want you to see it. I want you to see it in everyday life. I want you to see the different separations between different desires being expressed around you all the time. And I want you to be able to remember this shear and say, because of this shear, I'm able to see that the ultimate goal is to not have news where you have two different opinions, right? To not have video games where people are competing. To not have sporting events where there's two opposite sides. To have movies where you have a good guy and a bad guy. That everything is in a frame of Tiferet, completion, Yaakov, completion. So that is where this concept is coming, but we have to strip away the layers that don't, and B'ezras Hashem in this next year, I think we're holding by number 4 on the new economy, but this next year, after this, number 5, we're gonna really dig into that. What does it mean to turn myself into a brand? And the spiritual significance of it. I'm not in the world, I'm in the world of Ruach. If you don't understand my language, I understand, you'll learn as you go. But the point is just saying that I'm not in this limited world. The Torah is not from this limited world. The wisdom of our sages is not from this limited world. So this world that wants to convince me that my soul doesn't matter, my soul doesn't exist. So the information of God is irrelevant. It's ancient. It's a past place. And they tell me that because they don't acknowledge that I have a soul, because they have no answers for that. They have no understanding of that. The only reason why they even have any principles because they took the first half of the Torah and attached it to Shtiyot. That's the only reason why they exist. If they didn't do that, they wouldn't exist. So now you are living in the lower level of Choshech, away from the time of Gan Eden, where we had total clarity, and now you're here listening to this stuff. You bought into body consciousness is going to fulfill you. You bought into it. Don't lie. Don't lie. You're on TikTok. You think they're selling you sex, and if I have sex for 80 hours on ecstasy with this guy who's well endowed, the whole thing, then I'm going to be happy. Don't lie. If I meet a girl and she has this surgery on her bodies and accentuating her body parts and all these different things, that if I got this type of a girl, I'm going to be happy. Don't lie about it. That's how connected you are to the illusionary reality. And you watch movies and you listen to songs and you fantasize about the illusion. If I just had this. So why don't you go out and do a documentary on the people who experience the things that you pursue and ask them if it made them happy. Do it and come back to me. Come back to the Torah. Come back to our saviors. Come to our Gedolim. Go out there, check it out. Follow all your desires, get it all out. That's the level of animal consciousness you've been living in. You believe that. Sexual intimacy will only have value in a person's life as if it's a frame of Kedusha. Other than that, you're just bringing more demonic forces in the world. So the whole context of sex you were taught was a mechanism to bring more demons into a world, to convince more people that this illusionary limited world can fulfill them. That's it. This is what you were taught. So go and do it. Go and do it. Fulfill yourself. Torah will always be there waiting. Go and destroy yourself. Go and destroy your future. Bring demons into your life. Go and do it. Or, to save yourself a lot of time, you can follow the wisdom of the sages. Even though it goes against that animal desire that you're made of. We get it. We get it. But if you're hearing this message, for sure you have sparks of Adam Rishon. Best case scenario, you have sparks of B'nai Israel, 12 tribes. But for sure, everybody has, not everybody, the people who have righteousness in this world that are not purely wicked have sparks of Adam Rishon. This is what we want from you. We want you to connect to the highest version of yourself, and we want you to leave this illusionary reality that only can bring you false ideas of fulfillment behind. This is what we want. And this is where it's going to allow us to build an intellectual space to get to what Rabbi Nachman of Breslov shared with us in the beginning. That in the end, all of humanity will have one desire. Baruch atah Adonai leolam, amen, amen.